Hi everybody, welcome back to the Top Score Music Academy YouTube channel, and in today's lesson we're going to be looking at how to revise. We've already covered certain topics of how to revise in previous videos. We've looked at things like how to work smarter not harder, how to create and use flashcards, what to do with past papers once you've received them back and how you can use them to help with future revision, and how to take notes and summarize your notes, and some of the methods that we use for studying when it comes to summarizing your notes. But for this series of videos that we're going to be looking at this time, we're going to be covering other topics in quite a bit more detail. So we're going to be looking at things like how to create a revision timetable, how to do proper mind maps, what you should use flashcards for and what you shouldn't use them for, what is encoding, what is spaced repetition, some of the advantages and disadvantages to these things. And a lot of this is going to be based on research done by other academics in the field, experts in the field who spent years of their lives researching how the human mind works and how students remember things and study and how we use information, how we process information. So people like Ali Abdaal's YouTube channel are an excellent resource, especially if you're interested more in time management and prioritize your time and how to do really good sort of flashcard techniques and things. I've learned a lot from that YouTube channel. Other YouTube channels like Justin Sung's YouTube channel, which deals a lot with how to do proper mind maps and how the human mind works and how people learn and the learning process. There are others as well that I've used, and I've already mentioned these before, like Jade Byler's Unjaded Jade YouTube channel. She's actually published a book on a lot of the ways that she studied for her GCSEs and A-levels and going into university as well. So it's always good to get the perspective of students who've gone through the system recently. I found that some of the things that teachers my age and older may advise students to study, they may be a little bit out of date, or there may be better ways of doing it, or even some of the research has proven that these things aren't as effective as we thought they once were. So it's always good to get more recent perspective from students who've actually gone through the whole GCSE and A-level system. So those are some of the books and people that I am now using to combine these things together into the information that I'm going to go through with you guys over the next few lessons. And another one to touch on would be Tony Buzan, who was probably the guy mostly responsible for inventing the modern idea of what a mind map is. Now, the concept, I suppose, has been around for a very long time, what mind maps are, but the modern version of what you and I would think of as a mind map is a relatively recent invention, and Tony Buzan is probably the guy who is most responsible for popularizing this around the world for decades. And in his book, this one here, Mind Map Mastery, it's an excellent book to get all the sort of do's and don'ts for what a mind map is, and all the advantages of mind mapping and some of the pitfalls that you can easily fall into if you don't do mind mapping correctly. And he's also released other books for kids as well. There's this one that I'd recommend for younger children, like Mind Maps for Kids Study Skills. And also there's another one here as well, Mind Maps for Kids, an Introduction, The Shortcut to Success at School. So I've gone through those books as well, but most of the information in them would be found in the main one that he's published. So highly recommend you guys getting this book, as well as Jade Byler's book as well, the one that I just showed you a second ago, the study guide, the only study guide you'll ever need. Yeah, definitely. None of these guys are paying me to say this. This isn't a sponsored video or anything. So it's just these are the books that I found to be most useful and most effective with my students. So today's topic is going to be, how do we create a revision timetable? This is the first thing we need to do. Obviously, it's pointless just jumping straight into revision if you haven't really sort of pre-planned what you're going to do, and also the structure of your revision throughout the week, throughout the month, or even throughout the year. So how do we create a decent revision timetable, and what are the things that we need in a revision timetable? Well, here are some of the things I think what makes a good revision timetable. Number one, it needs to be simple and free to make. There are quite a lot of applications and websites and software that you can buy that will create a revision planner or a revision timetable for you. I have found more often than not that most students don't stick to it. There's things that get in the way, life gets in the way throughout the year or throughout their time at school. So there could be many things that sort of crop up during their so-called revision timetable that make the revision timetable a bit redundant, and students find it very difficult to keep to it. So you need something that's going to be simple to make and free to make, because you don't want to spend lots of money on something and then you're not going to use it, or you find after a while that it's impossible to keep strictly to that timetable, and then you end up buying something else, and before you know it, you're spending money on things that you don't really use or need. So if you can get something that's easy to use and free to use, I'm going to show you some of the things that I do, and all of which are free to use and easy to use. That's the number one thing to start with. Number two, it needs to be simple to understand. You need to create a revision timetable that when you look at it, you're not scratching your head trying to work out, how did I come up with this as my plan or my revision timetable, or this doesn't make sense, or I've given over too much time to this and not enough time to that. So it needs to be something that you can just look at it very quickly and just know exactly what you're meant to be doing immediately. So there's no time wasting in trying to decipher where you are in your revision timetable and what you need to be doing. And number three, and this is probably the most important one, it needs to be easy to make changes. Okay, you need to be able to make changes to your revision timetable when it's required, when needs be. So it needs to be responsive to your needs, what you're doing, because your needs will change throughout the year. You'll realize after maybe a few weeks or a few months that the way that you've been revising, certain things are working, certain things aren't working, and your revision timetable needs to be changeable and editable throughout the year that can accommodate that. So those are the three things then. I think it needs to be simple and free to create, it needs to be easy to understand, and it needs to be adaptable. So if you can make a revision timetable that's all three of those things, you're going to be starting off in a very strong position for your studies and your revision. So let's look at some of the things that I'm using and see what you think. You use some of these ideas. I'm just going to switch over to our other screen. And this is going to be our first topic up here, guys, the revision timetable. Okay, so there are going to be other things we're looking at in future videos, like advanced cramming, how to use flashcards. So again, these are things from Ali Abdaal and Justin Sung's YouTube channels, and also how to do good note taking, how to do mind maps. And there's going to be again a little bit from Justin Sung's YouTube channel and Tony Buzan's publications. And even what is encoding over here on the left hand side, and if we scroll on down the page, what is active recall and spaced repetition. So there are quite a few topics to cover in this handout, so it's quite a large handout, so I'll only be focusing on certain things for each video. So we want to be then looking at the revision timetable up here at the top. So I'm just going to zoom in a wee bit to that. Okay guys, here we go. This is the revision timetable, and the method that Ali Abdaal came up with I think is going to be very effective for studying GCSE music or A-level music, and he calls the method the GROW method, G-R-O-W. So for G, he's using what's known as a grid system that you would get, say, in Microsoft Excel or Google Spreadsheet. The one I'm using here is Excel for Apple Mac, and yeah, it's the same more or less for Excel for Microsoft Windows, or you could use Google Spreadsheets, which are completely free. So I think you would need like a Microsoft Office subscription or something to use this particular one that I have, but the Google Spreadsheets are just as good. So yeah, you can use either. So that's the first thing, is we're going to use a grid system. The second thing is we're going to use a rating system as well. The traffic system, the traffic light system is probably a really, really good one. So for any topic that you find easy, we're going to make that green. For any topic that you think I'm just okay with, or when I was studying that it was just all right, you would use yellow. And for anything that you're studying and you're struggling with it and you're finding it really, really difficult, and you know that you need to go over this in more detail, then yes, make that a red light for that particular topic. So that's the traffic system, or the traffic light system we're going to use. The third thing we're using here is what is the overall outcome. So O for overall outcome. the overall outcome, what we're trying to get here is to make the whole grid system as green as possible. So when you start your revision and the end of your revision, hopefully everything will start becoming more green as you're progressing through your revision timetable. So that's the overall outcome we're looking for. And the W is the weakest topic. You should study the weakest topic first. Now, your weakest topic could be one of two things. It can be based on the traffic light system. In other words, it could be the red things that you've colored in red that you said, yeah, this is the hardest thing for me. Or it could be, as you go through your revision, it more often will be things that you haven't studied in a while. So your weakest topic could be, you know, stuff that you've said is your weakest topic. You've color coded it red to say this is the hardest thing for my revision, or the thing I understand the least. Or it could just be something that you haven't looked at in a long time. So let's look at some examples here. So for you guys, you can see that if you're doing GCSE, the CCEA board from in Northern Ireland, you'll find that all of these are the set works that you study at GCSE. But you would just change these for AS or for A2 music, depending on your board or depending on what level you're at. So we're just going to keep it for GCSE because that's one that hopefully everyone who's done the CCEA will be familiar with this. If you're doing GCSE or you've recently done GCSE, you'll be familiar with what these pieces are. So there are 11 pieces here, and the top 3 are going to be your classical pieces. Then you have the next 3 would be your film scores. Then the next 2 are musical traditions in Ireland. Then the last 3 would be pop music. So really there are 11 set works that you need to study. And the way that I would do this, involving maybe a bit of interleaving in that you sort of combine maybe different set works that you're going to study per night. So you won't just study one, you might study 2 or 3. Now you're not going to study them, you know, in as much detail as you would study one set work, but you want to spread your revision out and not just leave, you know, some of these set works from, you know, months into the future before you look at them. You want to try and study all of them a little bit as soon as possible. So studying maybe 3 different pieces of music in one study session is a good way of covering as much as you can in a short time period. The dates that I put down here are just made up, but it doesn't really matter. I'm starting my revision on the 30th of November. Okay. So imagine I'm starting it on the 30th. That's the earliest date you're going to see here. So I decide to study Handel on the 30th of November. So there's my first one. And I also decided to study John Williams. So I got one from the classical, one from the film, and I'm also going to study Ash, Burn Baby Burn. Okay, so there's 3 set works that I study in one, you know, 1 hour or 1.5 hour study period, maybe half an hour each or something. And after going through them, I realized that, well, I'm okay with the Handel, so I'm going to color code that yellow. I'm pretty good with the John Williams, the Superman theme, so I'm going to color code that green, which is a bit ironic because that's probably one of the harder set works. Maybe that one should have been red. But yeah, this is the green one for now that I'm finding easy. And Ash, Burn Baby Burn, that's going to be the one that I'm going to say I'm struggling with. I'm finding that really, really difficult. Okay, so that would be on the 30th of November. The next day is going to be the 1st of December. So I'm going to study Mozart the next day. On the 1st of December, I'm going to study Bioga. Again on the 1st of December, and I'm studying Eurythmics, Sweet Dreams, on the 1st of December. And again, I've done one color for each of them. Mozart is okay, Bioga is difficult, I need more time with that one, and Eurythmics is green. Okay, so you can see where this is going, you know, one day after the other, so I'll just speed up a little. Berlioz is the 2nd of December, and as well as James Horner on the 2nd of December, and Florence and the Machine. That was a pretty bad study day. So I was green for Berlioz, but I'm red for James Horner and Florence and the Machine. So 2 set works there that I'm finding tricky. And then on the 3rd of December, it's going to be Eric Coates, the Dam Busters, and Stonewall Folk Group on the 3rd of December. And I've basically covered all the set works by that stage because there are just 11. If it was AS or A2, there would be 12 to study, but there is just those 11 set works. What I'm going to do is pick one of the ones that I find hardest and study that again. So for this one, I'm going to go back to Ash Burn Baby Burn, because I haven't looked at that since the 30th of November, and it's one that I'm finding hard. So I'm finding James Horner hard, as well as Florence the Machine, but I've already looked at them recently. I looked at them on the 2nd of December. So I'm going to the earliest one, the 30th of November, and I'm going to have a go at studying him again. And this time, it's not as bad. This might not happen from day to day. It may take a week or two or a month or two before this would change color from red to yellow. But I'm just speeding it up to show you guys the sort of the adaptability of this revision timetable. Okay, then the next day after that, I would go to the 4th of December, and on the 4th of December, I'm going to study again, focusing on the harder ones. So James Horner I'm going to be looking at, Florence the Machine I'm going to look at as well, and Byoga I'm going to be looking at. Okay, so again, focusing on the harder pieces, and it's been a couple of days since I've looked at Byoga as well, and you can see that the Florence the Machine and the James Horner haven't changed color. They're still just as hard. You'll probably find that's going to be a repeated pattern in your real revision timetables. You'll probably find, yes, that certain set works are going to stay red maybe for a month or two, and hopefully over time they will get easier the more you study them. Okay. So why is this such a very useful way of revising? Well, first of all, it's free. It's easy to use. It doesn't require any complicated software, or it doesn't require a lot of time. You're not going to spend ages, using beautifully produced revision timetables, and then you're not going to spend any time at all following what you said you were going to do. So I found that students have done that quite a bit. They buy these beautiful revision planners or revision timetables, things that you can get out of stationery shops, or programs you can get, or apps you can get on the App Store or whatever. And some of them cost quite a bit of money, and they're not used. Students try to keep to them, and then after a period of time they find it too hard. Whereas in this revision timetable, you are basically triaging your own revision. What are you finding hard and need to spend more time on? And when was the last time you looked at that set work? So it's constantly changing throughout the time period that you're studying. So over the course of weeks or months, you will see your progression. You will see how you're getting on. Sometimes it may not always just go to green. Notice here that for Handel, for Unto Us a Child is Born, that it started off yellow, and the next time I looked at it, the 5th of December, it was yellow still, hasn't really improved. The next time I looked at it was on the 9th of December, it's getting worse. So yeah, you won't always find that things just go from bad to good. Sometimes they can start okay, and then get worse, and then go back to just okay, and then it may take, a few more study sessions to get it up to the sort of green standard. And who's to say that if I was to come back in January 2025 that a lot of more red starts to appear? That's a good way of seeing what you need to study. So it's almost an automatic system where very carefully you're keeping track of what your weakest topics are and when was the last time you studied a particular topic. All of these can be a little bit more detailed as well. It doesn't have to just be the title of a set work. It could be, the features of that set work. You could have subtopics under each of these headings as well, like the musical features of Handel, or the melodic, harmonic, and rhythmic features of Handel, or maybe the textural features or the vocal textures of Handel. And you're studying that instead of studying the whole set work. You're studying particular parts of the set work. So you can decide how detailed do you want these topics to be, or just how general do you want them to be. I'm keeping them quite general, as you can see. Just the set work in general I'm studying, not anything in particular, just the whole of Handel I'd be studying for each of those days. You'll also notice as well that some of them that you haven't done in a while may get worse. So for example, there's one there, Eric Coates. It was good on the 7th of December, but then it was almost a week before I looked at it again, and my understanding or my memory of it may start to decline a little bit, and it's just now just an okay set work. And then you can bring it back up again by studying it over time. If you find that when you're doing this and your study is just a red wall from the beginning to the end, That's more of an issue to do with your understanding of the actual musical features, and it may be something you want to talk to your teacher about, just to get their feedback on how well you understand the concept that is being discussed in those set works. Like, do you understand what polyphonic and homophonic mean? Do you understand the sort of textural features or the harmonic features of a piece of music, or why it's baroque or romantic? So that may just be handouts and revision notes that you need to go through in a bit more detail, rather than just the set work itself. So hopefully it's not just a red wall for week after week after week. You will start to see an improvement. Okay, so I think that's probably the best revision timetable you should do. It's responsive and it's effective, it's easy, and it's got very good feedback as well. It's because you're putting in the dates as well as the traffic light system. You're keeping a very close eye on where you are in your revision and where you need to study more as well. I'd probably say from the looks of this, the hardest one there tends to be Florence and the Machine. So maybe coming up closer to your actual exam, maybe around about May time, maybe. Just focus more of your revision on Florence and the Machine, because you know from this revision timetable throughout the year, that was the piece that you struggled most with. So that's probably the one that could, trip you up in the exam, or maybe a question that you're not sure of comes up about that piece. So yeah, very, very useful wee tool. Okay guys, so that's your revision timetable using Google Spreadsheets or Microsoft Excel. Very easy to use, very adaptable, it's very effective, it's very changeable and editable. You can update it regularly. You can have different dates for every single topic that you're studying, as well as using a traffic light system to understand how good or how not so good, how poor your understanding of that topic is. And it's easier to follow that as well, that you're not sort of giving yourself unrealistic goals in, say, a revision planner or something, or just writing down, I'm studying these topics, throughout the week, and I'm just going to keep, going over them until I understand them. You want to go over the things that you find hardest. Of course, the traffic light system will point that out. And as those things begin to become more understandable, then you want to shift your focus to the things that you have studied least. In other words, the things that you haven't studied in quite a while. And again, this system allows you to do that. So if you have any questions about that, do feel free to get in contact with me anytime, and I can go over that with you as well. And if you have any questions or any queries, or you do need to get in contact with me for any other reason, my contact details there are in the description, and I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you again next time.